Hey everybody, Jeff aka GCurse here. Welcome to the Season 1 Episode 16 review of Black Site Files from Unsolved Mysteries. Black Site Files from Unsolved Mysteries, Season 1 Episode 16 covered. Season 1 Episode 16 of Unsolved Mysteries. In that episode, we covered 4 cases. However, there was a total of 6 cases from from Unsolved Mysteries. 2 of those cases were omitted. So basically, there was a total of 4 cases that I covered. We had in case number 1 the case of Lester Garnier. Garnier, I finally got his last name correct. It only took a few weeks, but I got it correct. I got it correct. Anyway, Lester was an undercover police officer that was found dead in his vehicle. Nobody knows who it was that killed him or why. Uh, I was talking to a viewer in the comments section of that case, and they brought up a good point. How is it that somebody who, may have not had that much experience on the force have enough money to afford such nice things? And it kind of kind of leads you to believe that possibly Lester could or could not be, doing some questionable things, and that's what led to his death, possibly. In case number 2, we had the sad case of Kathy Hobbs. Basically, Kathy, she, for quite a long time before she passed away, or before she was murdered, I say passed away like it was some sort of peaceful death. No, Kathy was murdered. But anyway, before Kathy was murdered, she was having premonitions, or visions, as some people would also say, that she was not going to make it to her 16th birthday, which I honestly feels like one of the saddest things a child or a teen can say and really kind of focus on for the remainder of their life. Not what can they do today? Are they going to play with their friends? Are they going to visit with their parents? Are they going to play a video game? Are they going to go outside and enjoy nature, whatever? No, this poor teenager literally thought for the remainder of her life. I don't want to say remainder of her life, but because it kind of, when she hit 16, she was actually alive, but she only stayed alive for like 3 months later until she was actually murdered. But the thing was, she spent the majority of her teenage life just constantly thinking that she's going to die. And I can't think of any a worse way for a person to go out than to literally just think about their death all the time, all the time. And it actually impacted Kathy to the point she stayed home. She became kind of reclusive. However, when she hit 16 years of age, she was actually still alive. But like I said, sadly, only a few months after her 16th birthday, she was murdered. So the question, ultimately was Kathy psychic? Did she have some sort of premonition, or was it just that she was at the wrong place at the wrong time? And if she was psychic, maybe she didn't have it wasn't as precise as she thought it was. She thought she was going to die on her 16th birthday, but it turned out to be a little bit later. After that, we went to the case of Jackie Harrington. Jackie Harrington was a child who had numerous, I think it was like 2 brothers and 3 sisters or whatever. She came from a large family. Sadly, her family was broken up when child services got involved when the parents were off at work, basically. And her brother Bill spent a good portion of his adult life trying to basically reunite his entire family. And then finally, I covered the case of Angelo Desideri. Once again, this is one of those weird cases that leaves kind of more questions than it does answers. Even though this case does have a conclusion, ultimately it leaves you with more questions because of what was basically kind of unveiled, basically. And then the two omitted cases I did not cover because they were actually covered in earlier episodes of Black Site Files from Unsolved Mysteries. We had the case of Arthur Frankfurt and then the case of Philip Pelletier. With that said and out of the way, after these commercials, I will be right back with the case of Lester Garnier. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are having a good day. So, let's talk a little bit about the case of Lester Garnier. Basically, like I mentioned before, he was a police officer who was actually pretty good at his job. He was part of the undercover division of his police department. I think it was in California, if I remember correctly. I think it was San Francisco. Here, let's do a quick look, shall we? See here. Do I have? Okay, apparently it doesn't work. Okay, there it goes. Okay, hold on. Let's do this. I think it was San Francisco or Los Angeles. I can't recall exactly what the location was. Come on, there it goes. Oh, it's Walnut Creek, California. Walnut Creek, California. So that is basically where this case focused. Basically, Lester was, like I mentioned, undercover officer in his department, and a lot of people actually gave him compliments about it. I want to say high marks because that makes it sound like he was reviewed and everything. They gave him compliments about his, how he did because there were times that he would arrest some of the people multiple times, and they didn't realize that it was the same officer arresting them. And to top it off, he would also arrest like prostitutes and everything. And from what was the prostitutes shared when he would arrest him, they actually didn't have anything really negative to say about him. It's like that they kind of realized that he was doing his job and that they were, doing something that was against the law. It isn't like that they actually had hatred for the guy. But sadly, some for some reason Lester was killed. They found groundskeeper found him asleep, or he thought he was asleep in his car that you can see here. And when the groundskeeper basically took a look in, he saw there were two bullet holes in Lester's head, if I remember correctly. Lester was dead. And then basically went on into an investigation, and the investigation kind of stalled because nobody knows exactly what happened. That they had a suspect, but the suspect ended up. Let's see here. Let's go back to here. The suspect was a foreign national. Let's see. I think it was Sweden. No. Okay, well let's scroll down. Let's scroll down. Okay, let's see here. It was the person that was in question. Her name was Catherine Kuntz. Let's see here. It was a Scottish national. Catherine Scotty Kuntz. Her fingerprints matched those found on his car. She was a prime suspect in the case. Police have stated that they believe that she was involved in the murder. She was a prostitute living in Concord at the time of the murder. In 1991, she was arrested in Virginia for conspiracy to commit murder. She allegedly hired two people to kill her husband. Fortunately, they were unsuccessful. However, the charges of conspiracy against her were dropped. She later pleaded guilty to assault. She was released from Florida prison, yada, 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 where she was held on unrelated charges. She was then deported to her home country of Scotland. So the fact that she was deported to Scotland, odds are, I honestly don't think she'll ever be brought back to face justice. So I said it before and I'll say it again. I think honestly, this case may never be solved because if she was the one that killed him, she's already off in the wind after she was deported to Scotland because from Scotland she could go anywhere in the world. So I don't think that this case sadly will ever be solved, but who knows? When it comes to these cases and me saying I don't think they'll ever be solved, I would like to be proven wrong. I would like to be proven wrong because every case deserves to be solved. Every crime dissolves. Every criminal deserves to face punishment for what they've done. Okay, let's get on with the pros, or my review basically. For the pros, this was actually a legitimate whodunit. I love whodunits because it gives you, some possible explanations, and gives you a chance to kind of figure it out. Here are some of the things that people were thinking of. It could have been that woman that killed him, the Scottish national. It could have been Lester. He was going against, or this some of the prostitutes. They were part of a prostitution ring, if I remember correctly, and a high profile person who, what was his name? What was his name? Let's see here. Let's see. Hold on. Oh God. Official. Oh God, I can't recall what the correct term. Oh, Roger Boas. It was Roger. His name was Roger Boas. He was a mayoral candidate, and it sounds like Roger Boas was he was caught having sex with an underage prostitute. So it's believed that possibly Roger Boas may have done something to Lester Garnier because of the fact that Lester exposed him for having sex with a child. Another idea is that possibly this whole prostitution ring, the higher ups of this ring wanted revenge because Lester was cutting into their profits by constantly arresting their women and everything. So basically, there's a few ideas here of who could have actually killed Lester Garnier. Another positive or pro, what do you want to call it, that I gave is that this is actually that just like everything else in season one, this had season one excellence all around. When I say season one excellence, I basically mean like everything from the visuals, the audio, the acting, the reenactments, the testimonials, everything. I feel everything in season one was like 5 stars. 5 stars. Whatever your scale is, 5 stars, 100%, 10 stars, whatever, A plus, whatever scale you use. For me, it would always be the top. Like, you can't get better than season one. Season one was like the best, and I think it's because of the fact that at this time, Unsolved Mysteries during season one, Unsolved Mysteries really was they were not sure, the producers were not sure that they were going to have a second season, so they had to really just give their A game, A game, A game every night that they air the show. That those episodes had to be hit right out of the ballpark, right out of the ballpark, and that's what they were doing with season one. Every episode was bam, 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 like right out of the ballpark every freaking time. However, with 99% of everything, when there's positives, there's always going to be negatives, and there are some negatives here. Now that when it comes to these reviews, these are subjective as always, and I've always had kind of trouble trying to figure out the pros and cons. Should it just focus on what I read? Should it focus just on the video case itself, or should it cover everything? So it's like ultimately all I can really say is that these are my reviews, and my reviews may be different, or the categories for how you review something will be different than me. For the cons, the case is still unsolved. The case is still unsolved. After all these years, after how many years has it been again? How many years has it been again? Here, let's take a quick look. 1988 is when this case happened. So it's been, oh my God, it has been exactly, see, 88 to 98, 98 to 2018. It's been almost 40 years. It's been 37 years, ladies and gentlemen. 37 years, and this case is still unsolved. And to me, that is truly something wrong. You know, Lester could, if he was alive right now, at this point, he could have retired. That's how long that this case has been open for. This case has been open and unsolved for so long. This poor guy could have retired, and to me, that's not cool. That's not cool at all. He should be given some. His case needs closure, basically. Another negative was that they had a possible suspect apprehended, but eventually returned to their country of origin. She's gone. We will never see her again. I'll make you a bet. I'm not even. We're not. I'm not even sure if she's still freaking alive. So they had a possible suspect, and she's gone. Gone. And then finally, like I already mentioned, case may never be solved. 99% of all the people most likely involved in this case are probably dead at this point. Here, okay, going down, let's see here. Let's see here. They also suspect one of the person was in. Okay, sadly, Lester's mother passed away in 1996, and his father passed away in 2002. So both his mom and dad are gone. Does it say if he had any other family members? Let's see here. Wow, it doesn't even say what his what his family, just literally has like a little blurb. How sad is this? Hold on. How sad is this? The guy doesn't even, a lot of the time you can go to these to find a grave, and it has a nice detailed list of like family, parents, wives, siblings. Nope, he doesn't even have that. So odds are, sadly, this person may actually, all his family may be gone, which is sad. And it's even worse that we have a police officer who was killed, wasn't in the line of duty, but still, this guy did a service for his people, and that's the things he basically gets. He gets murdered, and basically it has not been solved, and I just have problems with that. But that was the case number one, which was Lester Garnier. So when I return after these commercials, it will be with the case of Kathy Hobbs. Up next, we have the case of Kathy Hobbs, and this has to be one of the more tragic cases that I've covered so far in Black Site Files from Unsolved Mysteries. This, oh geez, where to start? Where to start? Kathy was a teenager that basically she she thought she was going to die, and right off the bat, you have to think how sad is that for a teenager, just to constantly think that they're not going to make it to their 16th birthday. She thought for sure she was going to die either on or before her 16th birthday. The way she was thinking is the way I can imagine, like, middle age to senior citizens thinking, like, okay, well, you know, pretty soon my time is going to come. I'll have that final sunset pretty soon, and I'm gonna walk off, and that'll be it. That's what you can expect middle age to senior citizens to think. Kathy, she was young when she started thinking like this. I can't recall when she started actually having this feeling she was going to die. But let's say at the most she was like 14, 15. She went her early teens thinking like this. No child, no teen should really think like this. Like this is something that really should plague adults and senior citizens, kind of like what I already mentioned. But the question ultimately comes out: was Kathy clairvoyant? Did she have some sort of precognition, premonition, whatever you want to call it. Was she psychic? And if she was, could it have been that, or even though she had this foresight ability, could it be that it wasn't as precise as she thought? I don't know. I don't know. Ultimately, Kathy's mom, to try and help her daughter, and I gotta give the mother credit. Kathy's mom moved Kathy and her sister to Las Vegas. Moved her to Las Vegas. And honestly, it really didn't help that much. It did not help that much until after she hit her 16th birthday, and she was ecstatic that she survived to make it to 16 years of age. She actually started planning about what she wanted to do for her future. She wanted to open up a salon, a hairstyle salon, and she wanted to name it Cat's Cuts. Who knows if it would actually have, you know, what kind of longevity it would have had, but she had plans. She had plans. She wanted to go to. I think said that she wanted to go to some sort of like a salon school. Hold on, let's see here. Let's do this. Let's do this. Okay. Cats cuts. Okay. Let's see here. Let's go. She started to spit. Okay, now this was after she. Here, I'll just read this entire paragraph here. Once again, feared that she was going to die. Kat spent all of her time in her room and refused to leave the house. On the morning of her 16th birthday, however, she was surprised and relieved to realize that she was alive. She seemed to have overcome her fears, which, if I was her father, I'd be like, yes, you can do this, girl. I knew you could do it. Like I would have been pushing so hard for, being so encouraging for her once she realized that she was not going to die. Let's see here. She began having a more normal teenage life. She started to spend more time with her friends and began to wear makeup. She developed an interest in beauty products. Started pursuing a career as a beautician. She planned to open her own salon called Cat's Cuts. I thought she wanted to go to like a beauty academy or whatever it's called. But she wanted to become a beautician. She had goals that she wanted to do. And sadly, 3 months, 3 days, I think it was 3 months, 3 days after her birthday, she was brutally murdered. And it's like such a fucking gut punch. It feels like kind of like a gut punch in the same way like when my mom passed away from a heart attack. Because my mom, she had a heart attack a few years ago and she passed away. Prior to her having a heart attack, or her heart attack, she had to go in for emergency cataract surgery. She had cataracts in both eyes. By the time she had to go for her surgery, she was almost totally blind. She was relying on me for so much of stuff that required like distance reading and stuff. Hey Jeff, what does that say on the television? Hey Jeff, what time is it? Hey Jeff, what does that say over there on the piece of paper that I brought in or whatever? I was her eyes. A couple weeks prior to her heart attack, she had the surgery, and within a couple days after that surgery, she could see perfectly. She could perfectly see. He was so excited. Hey Jeff, I'm like, hey, what's up? She goes, I can see what it says on the clock over there. I can see what time it is. And I was like, yes, yes, awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Only for her to pass away from a heart attack. That's just, oh God, that really just, that was like a gut. So I can imagine what, Kathy's family was like they thought the worst was, past when it came to Kathy being, kind of sad about her outcome. Only for Kathy to be brutally murdered. It's just, oh God, it's just. Ugh. But thankfully, the case was solved. The case was solved. They got the person responsible. So that is a positive. That is a positive. But anyway, so let's get on with the review. The pros. Vivian Hobbs, Kathy's mom, she emoted so much during that case. You could really feel the mom's pain. Like there are times you can watch Unsolved Mysteries, these cases, and the people who are talking, it's like they're literally reading from a script. And you just don't feel anything. These moms, you can actually feel it. You can feel the pain that the mother had that she lost her daughter. They even had Kathy's sister. I think her name was Teresa. Let's see here. Does it actually mention sister? Teresa. Okay, hold on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be right back, so stay tuned. Okay, so I have the YouTube popped up, so let's see here. Unsolved Mysteries Season 1, Episode 16. Okay. Okay, let's just fast forward a little bit. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna have to go back. I'm gonna pause recording real quickly so I can watch through this and get to the point because I don't want to get this video blocked because the producers of the show likes to block people who shows too much of their content. So I'll be right back. Okay, so uh I got it up to that spot. It's going. Kathy's sister will be coming up pretty quickly.
Again, wanted to continue her education and started to wear makeup. She planned to train as a hairstylist and open her own beauty shop called Cat's Cuts.
She was ecstatic. She came out. She goes, "I made it, Mom. I made it. I'm 16. I did it. I'm alive."
I cannot imagine like what you can tell from her sister's the voice and everything. Even her sister was. It sounds like she was even crushed at the fact that her sister was killed. It's just nobody in this family actually came out. Everybody was deeply impacted, as you can tell, but back onto the review. So basically, Vivian Hobbs, she did an awesome job. I should have also put down Teresa, that she did a great job also. But what I was trying to say before was that you can watch some cases on Unsolved Mysteries, and the people just do not emote at all. That it's like they're just reading from a script. They may not be reading from a script, but it's just that the way they speak and that how baritone it is and everything. It's like that they're just not there. Kathy and her mom, or Teresa and her mom, they did a very good job. The I don't want to fall into the trap of literally saying season one goodness, so I try to kind of change it up, but it basically falls into the same premise. Season one goodness. So basically various visual aspects, the music. It was fucking awesome. It's what you expect from a show that was just doing so good in their first season. Kathy's premonition that actually added a very interesting kind of deviation in this case. You know, was Kathy, did she have premonitions? Or was it just a case of being at the wrong place at the wrong time? Or was this all destined? No matter what Kathy did, was she destined to have actually died that night? You know, it leaves the viewers with that question, like, to talk about. What actually was it? Was it destiny? Was it a random act of violence? Was it the fact that Kathy saw this, and no matter what, she was still going to have to do it? Like, who knows? Thankfully, the case was solved, and the person he was executed, if I remember correctly.
After Kathy vanished.
Hold on, sorry guys. There we go. Let's see here. If I remember correctly, I think he was executed. He was convicted in a series of murders. So this wasn't even like the first time that this guy killed somebody. He killed a lot of people. This was not a good guy. It wasn't like he was a good guy when he killed Kathy, but this dude was pretty fucking bad. He killed a lot of people. Eventually, he was executed in Texas on December 9th, 1997. Okay, so her killer did face justice, which I am very glad to hear. I hate it. The one thing I hate most is when we have a serial killer or a killer in general. They kill people and then they are able to basically plea and bargain and get life. What makes them worthy of maintaining their life when they rob so many people of their lives? And that just fucking pisses me off. It pisses me off a lot. And finally, this is a good example of why you should not let your kids go out late at night. And even the cop who was investigating this case after Kathy's remains were located, he literally said that he at times he thought about bringing his child out there to see Kathy's remains and go, this is why I tell you you can't go out at night. This is why I, do not like you to go out at night. This is a good example of that. This is why you should not let your children go out late at night. And honestly, I cannot find any real cons at all. If there was one con, but I just couldn't put it on here. If there was one con, it's the fact that because the guy was already scheduled to die, the prosecutors did not pursue prosecution because he was already set to die. I figured I would want, I would want them to pursue prosecution if he killed my daughter. If anything, yeah, he's going to die. But the fact is, to not prosecute, in my opinion, it's basically like saying that your child isn't worth having some sort of closure. And to me, it's not even like justice being denied. It's just like, well, he's being punished. Why punish him some more? He's a killer. He deserves to face as much punishment as possible. But that was my review of the Kathy Hobbs case. When I return, ladies and gentlemen, we will have the Lost Loves case of, oh god, what was her name? Oh god, cannot. Right now, I'm drawing a blank. What was it? Oh, Jackie Harrington. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back. Okay, everybody, welcome back. I hope you're in the mood for a case that makes you feel good deep down inside. I have the case of Jackie Harrington. Jackie's brother, Bill Puritan, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He was actually part of a large family that had, I think it was like 2 brothers and like 4 sisters, or maybe a little bit more. But the thing is, like, sadly, I think it was on Bill and Jackie's birthday, possibly. It was one of their birthdays. They were having a birthday party. The prevention for cruelty to children, they basically came into the house during the birthday, and after the birthday party, they separated the children, which was fucking cruel to do. It's like not only are you separating breaking a family up, you're doing it on a birthday. How fucking piece of shit are you? You know. So basically, Bill spent his adult life trying to reunite his fractured family, and during the recording of this case, he actually found I think it was like all but two of his siblings. They then did an update where they found another sibling, if I remember correctly, and then they did a final update later on, if I remember correctly, and Jackie was actually located. That's why the case revolved around Jackie. Jackie was the final piece to this puzzle that they did not find at that time. But I'm glad to say that the case was solved. And it normally, I try to maintain like a level of distance from everything. And I like to kind of say that my heart is kind of frozen. My heart is kind of frozen. And I can actually say that this case actually, I felt good. I felt good. I felt good that Bill, got his happy ending. I feel good about that. So let's actually look at the review, shall we? For the pro, we had this was one of the best atmospheric cases I saw so far in season 1. There was a scene where it showed Bill, like walking, I think it was like in a forest near a creek or a lake or something. It was some sort of body of water. And what they did was that they originally focused on the water, and then they panned up and you can see Bill. I love stuff like that. I love stuff like that. It isn't just like boom, here he is. It was like a little bit of a build up. I like that. I like that a lot. The actors and actresses did a great job, especially during that reenactment of when Bill and his siblings were children. It actually showed the children like having during the birthday party, like how the children were kind of like dancing around and having fun. They were playing with I think like with a balloon. It was it was a feel good moment. The actor, you gotta give the credit to the actors and actresses. These were children actors at the time. And sometimes children actors and actresses are not the best because they're children. They are not professional and yet. They haven't reached that point yet where you know where they don't have mistakes. But these actors actually did a pretty good job in the reenactment. I gotta give them credit for that. Case was solved. Case was solved, and I'm happy for that. I like it when a case gets solved. It doesn't matter if it's like the most important case. To me, all cases are important. It doesn't mean like if it has like the most stakes or if it doesn't have that many stakes. Like every case deserves to be solved, and I can thankfully say that this case is solved. What I wish that there was like a tally or like a record somewhere on the internet that basically says like how many cases Unsolved Mysteries was produced, and how many remain unsolved and how many are solved. I would love to see what that is like. And then Bill, I give Bill Puritan credit for his determination. My God, this guy, he wasn't going to let anything stop him. He wanted his family back. I can relate to that. He wanted his family back, and I was personally, when I was younger, I was rooting like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to see him be happy and everything. So yeah, it was a damn good case. And like with the Kathy Hobbs case, there was really no cons or negatives or cons or whatever you want to call it. Everything was a nice little package that was all tied into a nice little bow. What more can you ask for, basically? But with that said, when I return with these commercials, It will be the final case, which is the case of Angelo Desideri. Stay tuned, and I'll be right back. Okay, everybody, welcome back. We are on the final case of this episode of Black Site Files from Unsolved Mysteries. I present to you the case of Angelo Desideri. Angelo, he was basically kind of like, I'm guessing you could really say he was like a self-made man. He owned like a strip mall. He owned an import business. Apparently, he was well liked in his community. He was even he attended God, like I think it was like a Christian school, or he attended some program where he was originally thinking about becoming a priest to join the priesthood, but he actually decided to not follow through with that. He decided to back out. It's reported that he actually did not. He never married. He preferred to live by himself. And hey, to each their own. To each their own. A lot of us like to live by ourselves. Why possibly risk needing to rely on others or it could be a trust issue or something. But this guy did it his way. And then came his last day. Basically, he was in the process of making lunch. It looked like he was going to have like a lasagna meal because he had lasagna in the microwave, like he was going to reheat the lasagna. He had asparagus, which I fucking love. I love asparagus. He had asparagus on the stove. It looked like he was just getting ready to cook everything when all of a sudden, Angelo disappeared. Angelo disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to Angelo. He had his like a place setting in, I'm guessing it was like a living room where he was going to eat. I think he may have even had like some wine or something. On the kitchen table or dining room table, he had a stack of all his bills that he was getting ready to pay. It looked like the guy literally had his day planned out and everything. Lunch, bills, whatever. In the living room, I think they said they found a bag with some pants that he bought the day before. It's he was busy that day, and then all of a sudden he just disappeared. Disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to him. The next day, people started realizing something may be wrong when I think it was a neighboring business. They went over to his import business at the strip mall, and the business was still closed. I'm guessing normally it would be open, but it was still closed. They then contacted somebody, and one of Angela's friends went to the house. The door was locked, but the alarm system was off. They contacted the police. The police got entry into the house, and then they found the lunch that was in the process of being cooked. They found the bills on the table. They found the clothing in the bag in the living room. They then went into the garage, and they found that on the floor of the garage was like a cover for a vehicle. I'm not sure what they're called, like a sheet or something, And they said that this was out of character for Angelo. That Angelo would have folded it up and put it away, which I do believe, because the house was actually pretty immaculate. So I cannot imagine having this real nice house, everything in the house being nice and orderly, and then in the garage you just find a sheet crumble up on the floor. That doesn't make sense. A few hundred miles away in California, if I remember correctly, the car was found on fire. It was on fire. Upon searching the car, they didn't find any real prints. In the trunk, they found literally nothing except for the jack. The tire was gone. The carpeting was gone. It's like that they were trying to hide whatever was in the trunk. Well, after doing some investigation, basically it was revealed that Angelo was in fact dead. They got the people responsible. Case solved? Maybe. Well, they do have the killer, so that part of the case is solved. However, this brought up more questions than answers, because according to the Unsolved Mysteries Wiki, let's go. Let's do a quick look, shall we? Hold on one second. According to the case wiki, it is rumored that Angelo could have been dealing with oh god, dealing drugs, and that his murder was due to orders of Romano Sabroca, a known drug trafficker. Let's see here. According to Callo, which was one of the killers, uh, or according to him, I'm guessing it could be Callo or Majors. Angelo sold drugs and kept records for a drug trafficking operation run by Sabroca. So basically, this raises more questions than answers. Was Angelo Desideri in fact a drug dealer? Was he in league with this organization of drug dealers? If he was, that would explain how he could have an import business, a strip mall, a nice house, nice car. You know, a lot of that stuff isn't cheap. And it doesn't exactly say in the beginning of the case how he came across all this. They make it sound like he kind of just worked his way, like he was a self-made man. But the thing is, exactly, if he bought all this stuff, how did he get how could he buy all of it? And could the strip mall and the import business actually be used as some sort of money laundering operation for the drug ring? So basically, like I said, even though the people who killed Angelo were apprehended and that they eventually ended up dying in prison, it still leaves more questions than answers. And I think ultimately it kind of taints Angelo Desideri's legacy. It kind of taints it a little bit. Instead of it just being squeaky clean, like, oh, this guy, he did all this stuff. He was a church goer and all that. There's always going to be like that little asterisk. He did all this, but it's being reported that he could have been involved in drugs. So it really kind of just it leaves a little bit of a blemish on this case. But anyway, on to the review. The pros: case solved, killers apprehended, killers died in prison. I would have preferred that they were actually executed, but they died in prison, so you take what you can get, I guess. The participants, everybody from the police officers to the family members, they did all a great job trying to, talk about Angelo and how nice of a person he was. This is one of those few cases that this had like a dream-like feeling to it. I'm not sure if it was just the film that they used at the time, or if it was like they were doing some kind of new filming techniques. But you watch this case, and I'm gonna put the link to this case in the description. Watch it and tell me it isn't like you're watching it like from a like a haze, like you're in a dream and you're watching this. It feels like it's a dream. And one of the last times I can actually recall watching this or having this kind of feeling. Oh god, I can't recall what the name of the case was, and it's one of my favorite ghost cases. Bunk bed. Unsolved Mysteries. The Tallman House. The Tallman House had that same kind of dream-like feeling to it when you're watching it, and I don't mean it like in a bad way at all. It just feels like it's just like had this weird feeling to it when you would watch it. But yeah, those were the pros. I really like that visual style. Like I said, it's hard to explain it. The cons, and this goes back to what I originally said. More questions than answers were raised by the closure of this case. And honestly, like I said, it leaves kind of a blemish on the case in general because, yeah, we got killers, but was Angelo actually killed because he was, involved in drugs? It is always going to leave that in the back of your head. Did he die because he was doing something he knows that he should not have been doing? Ultimately, that's up for you to decide. All I can do is read to you the case, give you my thoughts. It's ultimately up to you, the viewer, to make that ultimate decision. When I return, ladies and gentlemen, it will be with the final breakdown of season 1, episode 16 of Unsolved Mysteries. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We had one heck of a journey, did we not, in this episode of Unsolved Mysteries? We had this case of a police officer who was found murdered in his vehicle, whose case has never been solved. Hopefully, one of these days it can be solved. We had the tragic death of a teenager who may have been suffering premonitions. That case has been solved, thankfully. We have the determination that a brother had to relocate and locate and reunite with his lost siblings. And we ended this episode with the case of a business owner who died, but turned out that possibly this business owner may have been a little bit corrupt himself. With all that said and done, it is now time for basically the episode review, I guess you could say. But anyway, or summary, episode summary. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. The number of cases for this episode of Unsolved Mystery, there was a total of 6 cases. However, 2 of those cases were omitted because I covered them earlier in this season. We had the case number 1, we had the case of Lester Garnier. Following that, we had the case of Kathy Hobbs. After that, we had the case of Jackie Harrington. And then we closed off with the case of Angelo Desideri. Once again, the 2 cases that were omitted were Arthur Frankfurt and Philip Pelletier. When it came to the case types, we had 2 unexplained death cases, those being Lester Garnier and Kathy Hobbs. We had a lost loves case of Jackie Harrington, and we had a missing persons case of Angelo Desideri. Overall, let's look at the pros and cons of this episode. We had 3 cases solved, which I like to hear that. I actually like to hear that a lot. There are cases that are solved. That makes me feel good. This episode carries on the awesomeness of season 1. The reenactments, I think the reenactments were spot on in this episode. The people that were interviewed, both the adults and the teen, which was Teresa Hobbs, which is Kathy Hobbs' sister, she did a great job also. You could really feel it when she was recalling her, memories of her sister. You could tell she started getting choked up. If you're into families being reunited and murder mysteries, you will like this episode. This episode was really strong for those 2 types of cases. However, as always, you know that there may be some cons with the pros. So let's get with the cons, shall we? So for number 1, we had 1 case unsolved. And sadly, that case may never be solved. That was the case of Lester Garnier. I think that the person responsible for his death is never coming back to the United States. She was sent back to Scotland and everything. So I don't think she's ever going to face justice. Vital information was left out of the Angelo Desideri case, especially the revelation that possibly Angelo may have had more dealings with the drug ring than what was presented on the televised airing, because nobody really talked about that at all. So I'm not sure if they talked about it and they decided to edit it out, or they just decided not to talk about it at all. But I feel that some vital information was left out. The lack of case variety. I think a real strong episode of Unsolved Mysteries, it needs to have several factors, but one of them is case variety. You should, for Unsolved Mysteries, it should be mandatory you have at least like a ghost case or a UFO case or some sort of unexplained case, something that really gives you that unsolved feeling. It's okay to have murder mysteries and lost loves, but you need to have a wide variety. So this really didn't have that. I like to see a good old-fashioned ghost case or UFOs. You know, add one of those into the mix. That would help the show a little bit more. And then once again, recycling prior cases. Now this is something that would be common if we were living in the 80s and 90s when we didn't have YouTube and the internet in general. Back then, it was accepted that we'd have some recycled cases because everybody didn't watch the previous episode of Unsolved Mysteries, so they would have these little updates and everything to basically to alert the viewer that something did happen. I can understand that, but we are now in the age of the internet, basically, where YouTube is basically one huge video on demand service. They are one huge video on demand service. There is no reason that they could not edit out some of these duplicate cases. I cannot recall how many times they had the same. Oh God, I think his name was Stephen Cox. He was a guy who did some major fraud. I think they covered that case 2 or 3 times already in season 1. I mean, it's just like Stephen Cox. When all they could literally would have to do is just do some simple editing and put it all together in one video. This is not live television, ladies and gentlemen. This is not live television. There is no need to have useless bloat in some of these videos. And the whole argument, well, they gotta let people know. That's true. They do gotta let people know. But if you're already on a video on demand service, people are most likely going to watch Unsolved Mysteries from the very first episode to the last episode, like I did back in the early 2010s when these started getting uploaded. I just do not like the fact that they try to pad. It's padding for some reason. It probably has to do with advertisers on YouTube. I just don't like that fact that they cannot add specific cases that people want to see on YouTube. They can't do that, but they will just bloat episode after episode after episode of stuff that they covered like 1 or 2 episodes prior. If I remember correctly, I think that Arthur Frankfurt case was covered like 3 or 4 episodes just prior to this one. It isn't like that some of these updates are from like in the very first episode of Unsolved Mysteries. Some of these updates are literally just like a previous video ago. And we'll probably see this even more as we continue on through this entire series. I just think that they could have literally just basically edited out, the useless stuff that we already know of. Because like I said, people are going to go on to start watching the very beginning, It isn't like people are, especially if you're a new viewer to Unsolved Mysteries. New viewers will be like, oh, geez, there's a series I've never seen, Unsolved Mysteries. So let's see what it's like. They're going to start with season 1, episode 1. Well, at least hopefully they would. They're not going to be like, oh, we got this series here. I never seen this. Let's see what season 12, episode 8 is. No, they're going to want to see from the beginning. They're going to want to see from the beginning. And I just do not like the useless bloat, basically. Final thoughts. Overall, I give this episode a B. I was kind of floating between a B and a B minus, but I decided to throw them a bone. It was basically based on that Kathy Hobbs case. That Kathy Hobbs case really helped elevate this to a strong B. However, I thought that, I gave Kathy Hobbs the case MVP. However, I thought all the cases were good, but you can only really pick one, so it's kind of like that situation. It's either one or none, and I don't want to say that none of the cases were good. None of them were not MVP. Kathy Hobbs was the MVP case. Lackluster case. If I was to pick a case based on the fact that it was, solved or not solved, it'd have to be Lester Garnier. I didn't want to pick the case, but a case needed to be picked. And, do I pick a case, 2 cases that were possibly solved, the Angelo Desideri or the Jackie Harrington case? It's like those 2 were solved. So if I was going based on off a case that was not solved, Lester Garnier would sadly have to be that sacrificial lamb. But that was it for the season 1, episode 16 of Unsolved Mysteries. Okay, with season 1, episode 16 in the rearview mirror, it is now time to look forward to season 1, episode 17 of Unsolved Mysteries. Season 1, episode 17 was an odd episode because basically they focused on one case and one case only. That case being Alcatraz, also known as The Rock. This episode focuses on 3 people who managed to escape The Rock and they were never apprehended. Those people being Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin. I wish I could really say, more about this episode, but it only focuses on one case. So here is the preview for that case.
Alcatraz, The Rock. For over 29 years, the nation's most notorious prison, a home for such master criminals as Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, and its Birdman Robert Stroud. Alcatraz stands in the middle of San Francisco's icy cold bay, a treacherous moat that was the best guarantee that nobody would successfully escape. And nobody did until June the 11th, 1962.
Okay, so that was just a brief overview of, what you can expect when I read to everybody the case of Alcatraz. And this isn't just a standard case like what you're used to, ladies and gentlemen. They actually tried to spice it up by adding, they had a few live segments which were actually just pre-recorded, where they had some people swim from Alcatraz to, I think they were trying to swim to the mainland, but they ended up not making it that far. And if I remember correctly, I think they also had a group in a replica of the boat that the escapees basically made using, I think they used sewed up coats and whatnot. It's hard to explain. And then they had a person, oh god, I think it was a former Olympian as a host. So well, that's really the video itself. I can't recall if they really showed that much or they talked about that much in the wiki itself. So, but basically, I'll be reading to you guys the wiki. I'm sorry. I got a little bit sidetracked there. I was thinking about the case itself, the video itself. But anyway, that is it. It is the end of another episode of Black Site Files from Unsolved Mysteries. I will see you next time for this upcoming episode. As always, if you like what you watch, which I hope that you did, feel free to click that like, click the subscribe, and I will see you next time. If you have a request for a case you would like to see, drop it in the comments section, and if I have some free time, I will try to get to the case for you guys. Until then, my name is Jeff, aka GCurse. Wishing you all a great day. Stay safe, everybody. Peace out.